All right, so today we're diving into a really fascinating report from the Institute for the Study of War. It breaks down the systematic ways Russia is trying to cement its control in occupied Ukraine. And we're not just talking about what's happening on the battlefield. No, this is much deeper. It's about a really methodical, multi-layered game plan for total integration. Okay, let's get right into it. So this report really forces us to ask a fundamental question. When you get past the military force, beyond the battlefield, how does an occupying power actually take control of a place? We're talking about the real nuts and bolts of administrative and social control.
And to get our heads around it, the ISW report lays out 4 key pillars of this playbook. It starts with a humanitarian crisis, then moves to controlling information, forcing a new identity, and finally, a complete financial takeover. So let's walk through each one.
First up, the humanitarian crisis. You see, the strategy doesn't start with propaganda or politics. It begins with something far more fundamental, controlling the absolute basic necessities of life. It all starts with water.
And the human cost here is just stark. In late July, kids in occupied Donetsk Oblast actually sent a video appeal straight to President Putin. And they were asking him to restore the water supply so that, and this is a direct quote, they could simply wash ourselves, drink, and live. It's a pretty powerful reminder of what's at stake here every single day.
The scale of this problem is just staggering. The head of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, Denis Pushilin, said that water losses in occupied Donetsk can hit as high as 60%. That's a direct result of these irregular supply schedules and, well, infrastructure that's just completely falling apart.
So what does this actually look like for people on the ground? Well, in major cities like Donetsk and Mariupol, we're talking about water for just a couple of hours, every few days. Think about that. People are having to collect water from rainfall, from puddles, even from leaky pipes. And as you can imagine, that's leading to some really severe sanitation problems. Now, the occupation officials, they point the finger at Ukraine. But the ISW report is pretty clear. It was Russian military actions that actually damaged the infrastructure to begin with.
Okay, so once you've got a handle on the physical resources people need to survive, what's next? You control the information they get. And Russia's doing this by pushing into the digital world with a platform called the Max messaging app.
So what exactly is this Max app? Well, it's a messaging app, sure. But the crucial part is it's tied directly to VKontakte, or VK, which, is the Kremlin-controlled social media giant. And here's the kicker. It's built specifically to prevent anyone from using it anonymously. That has huge implications for surveillance and control.
And the way they're rolling this out is very deliberate, very top-down. Step 1, force occupation officials in places like Kherson and Zaporizhia to make accounts. Step 2, mandate that all official work communications have to go through Max. That gets everybody used to it, and it sets the stage for the final move, pushing it onto the entire population.
So why all this? Well, according to a Ukrainian partisan group, Max is basically spyware. They claim it scoops up personal info and sends it directly to Russian security services through VK servers. The goal seems pretty straightforward. Monitor the population, get total control over the information space, and basically sever the region's connection to the outside world.
All right, so from controlling information, we pivot to controlling identity itself. This is the third pillar, and it's a strategy known as passportization. It's a playbook designed to systematically replace Ukrainian identity with a Russian one.
And they're using a classic carrot-and-stick method. The carrot? That's the incentives. They're waiving the application fee for a Russian passport for vulnerable people, like orphans or the elderly who are stateless. But then comes the stick, the coercion. Suddenly, you need a Russian passport to keep your parental rights, to get social services, even to get car insurance. The ISW's analysis here is that this is not some short-term fix. Passportization is a deliberate, long-game strategy. It's really designed to do 2 things. Create the conditions, over generations, for these territories to be fully integrated into Russia, and in doing so, to try and erase Ukrainian identity, both on paper and in practice. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the one that ties it all together, the financial takeover. This is all about rerouting the economic lifeblood of these territories and plugging it directly into Russia's system. And to make this happen, Russia is bringing in its heavy hitters, state-owned and state-affiliated corporations. You've got Spermobile from the giant Sberbank becoming the first Russian federal telecom operator in the region, already with over 2 million users. You've got the state development corporation VEB.RF pumping cash into infrastructure. And then you have companies like Miranda Media actually building out the new comms networks. It's a full-court press. The endgame here seems pretty clear. It's to make these occupied territories 100% dependent on Russia for every single financial service. By doing that, you effectively detach them from Kiev, making it incredibly difficult for them to ever reintegrate back into the Ukrainian economy.
So, let's pull all these different threads together, because what we're looking at isn't just 4 separate tactics, it's one complete and very integrated strategy.
So to recap, Russia's integration playbook stands on these 4 pillars. First, control basic needs by creating and managing crises. Second, control information by forcing everyone onto state-monitored platforms. Third, control identity by pushing Russian citizenship. And fourth, control the economy by just absorbing their entire financial and telecom systems.
When you put it all together, what the Institute for the Study of War report really shows us is a systematic, multi-pronged effort. The goal isn't just to occupy, it's to absorb. To completely absorb these territories and methodically erase Ukrainian identity, both physically on the ground and administratively on paper.
So what we have here is a detailed blueprint for total integration. It's all laid out, and that really leaves us with one big lingering question, doesn't it? When you look at just how deep and wide-ranging all of this is, you have to wonder, how permanent are these changes really meant to be?